if there's a trial, there's going to be a verdict or something during the show. George Floyd happened during the show, about Arbery happened. So we are awaiting right now the sentencing of the 3 racist demons that killed Ahmaud Arbery, whose only crime was running in a neighborhood being Black. And the judge is about to sentence him now. And I thought this was going to happen this morning. And so I have statements from his mom, statements from his sister, but they're sentencing now. So we're going to go live to the sentencing and we're going to have a conversation. Go ahead, Smith.
Malice murder, life without the possibility of parole. Count 2, felony murder, is vacated by operation of law. Count 3, felony murder, vacated by operation of law. Count 4, felony murder, vacated by operation of law. Count 5, felony murder, vacated by operation of law. Count 6, aggravated assault, merges into count 1. Count 7, aggravated assault. The court sentences the defendant to 20 years consecutive to count 1. Count 8, false imprisonment, merges into count 1. Count 9, attempted false imprisonment, 5 years concurrent to count 7. That is life plus 20. Greg McMichael, the court sentences you as follows. Count 1, malice murder, defendant was found not guilty. Count 2, felony murder, life without the possibility of parole. Count 3, felony murder, vacated. When I say vacated, it's vacated by operation of law in all cases. I'm not going to repeat it. Count 4, vacated. Count 5, vacated. Count 6 merges into count 2. Count 7, aggravated assault, 20 years consecutive to count 2. Count 8, 10 years concurrent to count 7. Count 9, 5 years concurrent to count 7. That is life plus 20 years. Roddy Bryan, I do want to separate a little bit because the state is making a different recommendation. And despite the back and forth that Mr. Goff and I had during this case, I do want to point out a couple of things that he raised that I think are appropriate to raise with regard to the sentence. As far as the remorse, I think Roddy Bryan stands in very different shoes. It is obvious from the beginning that he questioned the tragedy that had occurred at the scene. It was on, I believe, I can't remember whose body cam, but the body cam, in fact, questioning whether or not what had occurred, and then took steps early on in this process, I think, that demonstrated that he had grave concerns that what had occurred should not have occurred. And I think that does make Mr. Bryan's situation a little bit different. However, Mr. Bryan has been convicted of felony murder. And I do not believe it can be disputed based on the facts of this case that the verdict was an appropriate verdict based upon the evidence presented, at least. And when I say appropriate, what I mean is legal. Because I believe there's been some discussion about some differences between Mr. Bryan and the McMichaels. There may be some differences, but it does not change the fact that was it not for the fact that Mr. Bryan used his vehicle in a way to impede Mr. Arbery's course of travel, this may not have ever occurred. And that is sufficient for felony murder. He did cooperate with law enforcement. I will point out Mr. Goff 1710-1B. There's actually a case out of Chatham County that says it would not apply under the circumstances of this case. So the court recognizing that Mr. Bryan's position is different. Again, Mr. Bryan was found not guilty on count 1 and count 2. The court sentences Mr. Bryan to life with the possibility of parole on count 3. Count 4 is vacated. Count 5 is vacated. Count 6, the defendant was found not guilty. Count 7 merges into count 3. The defendant is sentenced to 10 years consecutive to count 3 on count 8 and 5 years concurrent with count 8. Both of those counts, though, will be suspended sentences, which gives Mr. Bryan a life with the possibility of parole sentence. Those are the sentences. The court having pronounced sentence First, with regard to Travis McMichael. Mr. McMichael, you are hereby notified that under the law of Georgia, you are entitled to appeal the guilty verdict of the jury. And if you decide to do so, you must file your appeal within 30 days of this date. You are also informed that you have the right to retain a lawyer of your own choice to represent you on your post-trial motions and appeals to the appropriate appellate court of Georgia. If you cannot afford a lawyer, the court will appoint one for you. You are entitled to and will be given a transcript of all pretrial, trial, and post-trial matters without cost to you if you cannot afford a transcript. You may file a motion for a new trial, or you may appeal your case directly to the appropriate appellate court of Georgia for review. You are also advised that the statute of limitations for habeas corpus in this state is 4 years in the case of felonies and 1 year in the case of misdemeanors. The statute begins to run from the date the conviction becomes final. And just to be clear on the record, I'm going to go through the statement with regard to each defendant. So as to Gregory McMichael, you are hereby notified that under the law of Georgia, you are entitled to appeal the guilty verdict of the jury.
Okay.
And if you decide to do so, you must file your appeal within 30
technical,
days. Of this date.
All right. So we have Travis McMichael, 35 years old. He actually pulled the trigger. He was the one that took the life of Ahmaud Arbery. He was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole plus 20 years. Reached out to Angie Porter. She is in a meeting and she can't join us, but I'm sure as the days go by, we'll have her on or somebody to suss out what does life without parole plus an additional 20 years, what does that even mean? What does that mean? His father, Gregory McMichael, 66 years old, also got life without the possibility of parole, also got 20 years, even though he was found not guilty of the malicious murder, the first charge that Travis was found guilty of. And William Roddy, whatever the hell his last name is, Bryan, 52, has life with the possibility of parole plus 10 years, or the 10 and the 5 years I think were suspended. So they're all going to jail. And it's interesting, Dante, and I just want to know how people feel about this. Is this justice? I know it can't bring Ahmaud Arbery back, but I knew for everything in my being that the McMichaels needed to spend every last breath of their days in jail. Like they should never see outside, except for 1 hour a day, maybe 866-801-8255 to exercise. I don't know if this is justice. So last night I watched Women of the Movement, starring, of course, Tanya Pinkins, who's a family member here on the Karen Hunter show and family member in narrative in Nubia. She plays the mother of Mamie Till Mobley, who plays the mother, Emmett Till. And, you know, I've known this story for a while. You know, I've known about Emmett Till for all of my adult life. I knew who Emmett Till was. I knew his story. I knew what happened to him when he went to Money, Mississippi. I knew about the 75-pound fan that was wrapped around him. I knew that he was thrown into the Tallahatchie River. I knew before that they beat him and bludgeoned him and stabbed him and cut off his ear and did all kinds of unthinkable things and then shot him in the head before they threw him in the Tallahatchie River. I know that they snatched him out of the bed of his uncle. I knew that it was a family member whose bed he was in the wee hours of the morning, snatched him out of bed, and took him out of that home and did those unthinkable things. And I knew they was from Chicago, 14 years old. His mom sent him down south, as many of us were sent down south, you know, to visit relatives. And watching Women of the Movement, you get to see the family dynamics play out. You get to see the relationship that Mose had with the family and how Emmett begged to go down south. He wanted to be on the farm. He wanted to hang out with his cousins. He wanted to go fishing. He wanted to have fresh air, being a city boy. You saw what led up to the encounter with Carolyn Bryant, who's still alive. Emmett Till is not. And so when I was watching this morning, the statements from Wanda Cooper-Jones, the mother of Ahmaud Arbery, and his father and his sister Jasmine, I was thinking about Mamie Till Mobley and how, I mean, y'all got to watch this. It's triggering. It is infuriating. If you think you know the story, watching it though gives it texture and layers, and it allows us to see the humanity of Emmett Till, not just Emmett Till, his mother, his family. It gets you to see that these were human beings. human beings, as was Ahmaud Arbery. And I find it interesting that we're having these juxtapositions, in this time. So I want to play Wanda Cooper-Jones's victim impact statement. Now, you know what? Let me play Jasmine's first, his sister, Jasmine Arbery, because I think she framed it starting out the way she did. It was, again, centering Ahmaud Arbery's humanity. We have to continue to do that. Let's play Jasmine and let's play Wanda, and then we're going to have a discussion. 866-809-8255. Go ahead.
Ahmaud is my brother, and I would like to tell you a little about him. Ahmaud had dark skin that glistened in the sunlight like gold. He had thick, curly hair, and he would often like to twist it. Ahmaud had a broad nose, and the color of his eyes was filled with melanin. He was tall with an athletic build. He enjoyed running and had an appreciation for being outdoors. These are the qualities that made these men assume that Ahmaud was a dangerous criminal and chase him with guns drawn. To me, those qualities reflected a young man full of life and energy who looked like me and the people I love.
Okay. I don't know if that statement or the one by Ms. Wanda Cooper-Jones had an impact on the judge. It sounded to me that the judge was definitely disgusted. I think it's interesting that both Travis and Gregory, 35-year-old Travis, and his dad, 66-year-old Gregory, and got the exact same sentence. I think that's interesting. Life without parole plus 20 years. I don't know what, if it's life without parole plus 20 years, that's just.
We just want to make sure. You want to make sure you never get it.
Think you're going to live longer? Here's 20 more years on top of that. I'm not mad at that. But his mother, watching her today, first of all, if anyone's a parent, the biggest nightmare in the world is to bury your child. No parent expects to bury their child. And being Black in America, unfortunately, the possibilities of having a Black boy in this country means that you are extra vigilant and extra scared and extra concerned about their safety, because at any point in time, I mentioned Emmett Till, that was in 1955, but today, Ahmaud Arbery jogging, going to a site where they're building out homes or what have you. I've driven into home sites because I love this stuff. I'm on HGTV every weekend. I love this stuff. I'm always curious. I want to see what they're doing. He had no pockets to, what was he stealing? He wasn't stealing anything. He was in a neighborhood that they didn't feel he should have been in. So Roddy got his truck. McMichaels got their truck. They cornered him like an animal. What are you doing here, N-word? N-word was said. As a matter of fact, they're going to also be tried for civil rights violations, for hate crime. So this is not their only trial. They're also going to be tried federally for hate crimes. So we'll get all of the racist stuff in that trial. We didn't get a lot of racist stuff in this trial. They just went strictly on the murder, which they were convicted of. But his mother broke my heart today to have the strength to stand up there and give this impact statement. It was so powerful. I'm going to play the whole thing. So, just if you haven't heard it, you're going to hear it today, because I think you need to hear from Ms. Wanda Cooper-Jones. So we're going to play it, Ms.
I want to first speak directly to my son, if I please. This verdict doesn't bring you back, but it does help bring closure to this very difficult chapter of my life. I made a promise to you. Today, I laid you to rest. I told you I love you, and someday, somehow, I will get you justice. Son, I love you as much today as I did today that you were born. Raising you was the honor of my life, and I'm very proud of you. Your Honor, these men have chose to lie and attack my son and his surviving family. They each have no remorse and do not deserve any leniency. This wasn't a case of mistaken identity or mistaken fact. They chose to target my son because they didn't want him in their community. They chose to treat him differently than other people who frequently visited their community. And when they couldn't sufficiently scare him or intimidate him, they killed him. My youngest son, he was born on Mother's Day of 1994. He had a smile so bright, it lit up a room. He was a greedy baby that seemed like he was always searching for something to stick into his mouth. He was always a loving baby who seemed to never tire of hugs, cuddling, and kisses. He loved, he never hesitated to tell me, his sister Jasmine, and his brother Marcus that he loved us. And Your Honor, we loved him back. He was messy. He sometimes refused to wear socks or take good care of his good clothing. I wish he would have cut and cleaned his toenails before he went out for that jog that day. I guess he would have if he knew he would be murdered. My family is gonna miss Ahmaud. We're going to miss his jokes, his impersonations, his warm smile. These men deserve the maximum sentence for their crimes. Ahmaud never said a word to them. He never threatened them. He just wanted to be left alone. They were fully committed to their crimes. Let them be fully committed for the consequences. Your Honor, I'm standing here before you as the mother of Ahmaud Arbery, asking you to please give all three defendants who are responsible for the death of my son the maximum punishment in this court, which I do believe is life behind bars without the possible chance for parole. Thank you.
Okay. Sounds like the judge listened. Dante, have you been following this case?
Yeah. I watched it, followed it. But I'm one of those guys. I get on YouTube for 2 hours and just watch cops beat up Black men. I'm actually trying to get into a position where I don't watch it because it's so toxic. And I find myself because we push it down so often. Like we did death by 1,000 cuts. We push it down and then we see these people in a real way. We see ourselves in them. And, you know, I have a son and I think about that and I think about my own experiences so much that I've pushed it down so much that it really is taking apart. You don't realize that it's taking apart from you. It takes away from you. I'm glad to see what the verdict was and the sentencing was, but it's I don't want to get all worked up, but it literally takes away from who you are as a person to think that you can't be treated like a human being, and no matter how exceptional you are, you're the exception to the rule, and then they just move on with this ability to take away from your life, from your being, and you persevere. The real superheroes are not in Marvel comic books. It's the fact that Black people find a way to work and have children and raise people and do great things in this mess, to climb out of this mess, this racial mess that you literally, I mean, I've told you 1,000 times, I worked in the phone company, blue collar, well-to-do middle, and the mediocrity in which, the arrogance in which your humanity is taken away on a day-to-day, I don't mean once in a while, every day, the consideration of your humanity is in question. It just, it takes away from you. It pulls away from you. And the fact that you find some success or some happiness in the context of this, I don't,
Well, I mean, I think that's part of the superpower, the DNA of like perseverance. Like you couldn't survive the Middle Passage without a little something, right? So the Middle Passage, that's survival. So now you produce children from that DNA because only certain people could survive. So some people are like, I'm not doing this. I'm jumping. First chance I get, I'm out. So to survive that 8-9 months in a hold of a ship and filth and raped and all, whatever on the ship, then to get snatched away, beaten, tortured, whatever, brutalized, and then to survive that. And then for generations to survive, and then freedom. But then it's like psych, Jim Crow, we'll give you freedom, but now back of the bus, eat this, all of that, right? Oh, we're gonna lynch you. And the fact that I'm gonna always juxtapose this to Emmett Till because it is such the fact that this mother of the movement docuseries, which is I think for 4 weeks, Adrian, why can't I'm blanking on her name now, the star of it, Adrian, her last name I can't remember it, but her portrayal of Mamie Till Mobley is she's gonna win Emmys. She got to win. But when you think about this mother and Adrian Warren, thank you, Smith, making a decision because they were trying to bury her son in Mississippi. They wanted this to go away. And there's a scene, I don't want to give away too much, with the medical examiner or the coroner or whatever, they were like, I can't ship this body back to Chicago looking like this. I can't. So you have to promise me. So they had to make a promise. She was like, I want my son back in Chicago where he was loved, where he was seen, where we're not going to leave him in Mississippi where they brutalized him. We're going to. And then when she saw him, they take you through the scene, Dante, of what his body looked like. And everyone can remember the picture of Emmett Till in that casket. But in this, they take you through his body. And it is, And she said, I want everyone to see this. I want everyone to see what they did to my child. But my question is, all right, they went Michaels and the Bryant men who snatched, and I'm putting up air quotes around men, who snatched Emmett Till out of that bed and did that horrible thing to him. They knew that they were going to get away with it. There was no doubt in their mind that they could come into somebody's home, take a child out of their bed, kill them, and walk away free. The McMichaels probably thought the same thing.
Many years later, same attitude.
So, but my question is this a deterrent? Is there somebody else? Is this going to deter somebody who is just like these people? And there are a lot of people just like these people. They're not anomalies. So let's not say these are outliers or this is, an isolated incident. No, this is culture.
Bad apples. They always say bad apples. Culture.
The McMichaels and William Bryan, the fact that I remember the early days when he was on Cuomo, he was making the rounds because he was the one with the video. And he was trying to say, I didn't know what they were doing. This dumbass actually produced the video months later, by the way. They killed this man months later, but it wasn't for the vigilance of his mother. Like, this, something happened to my son. You're not just going to just tell me. Yeah, no. And then the video surfaced that the dumbass that now is going to be serving life with parole produced, and he was going out with his lawyer as if he was, I didn't know that they were going to do this. Nah, okay. They all kind of felt like they could get away with this.
Sure. It's like you said, it's culture. What you find is the culture has been, so law creates a consequence, but the consequence has to create the culture. So the consequence, I always use the analogy of, like, in LA, you can't jaywalk. It's because people get tickets for jaywalking. In New York, if you get a ticket for jaywalking, you might cuss the cop out for doing it. You ain't got nothing else to do. So there's a culture, whereas if you try to jaywalk in LA, the community says that this is incorrect behavior. So it doesn't even have to be a cop around. The culture of that, people, if you step off the curb before the light changes, people look at you like you're crazy, and you feel that social pressure. I believe we are still 3 years from the culture changing. And to think about the amount of Black bodies that need to be murdered and convicted and consequence. I mean, because we're seeing consequences,
right.
We're starting to see consequences.
Right. Taser. Dante Wright, the killer of Dante Wright, she got convicted. George Floyd, of course, the killer of George Floyd, Derek Chauvin, the other cops who could now, I didn't do it. I didn't put my knee on his neck. Yeah, but you were complicit. They're going to be on trial soon. Yeah. We're going to watch that play out. And I believe, because Keith Ellison is not playing, they're going to be convicted of something as well.
Sure.
So yeah, you're right. We have to catch up with the consequences.
What's the brother that they said he died in a car accident, and they tortured him and murdered him and tased him, and what is his name? They said he died in a car accident, and then the video surfaced where they tortured him to death. Light-skinned brother. Oh man, just okay. I don't know. I can't believe you didn't see. I mean, because I go in these deep.
I see you.
Just one after the other. Even when it's just arrest and brutality, because we're not just talking about murders, we're talking about brutality in every one. We 21 more times where a cop will put our hands on us, cuff us, slam us against the wall, tase us. We're talking about murders as the benchmark. But if you can murder people and get away with it, what do you think they're doing? I mean, when I was a kid, cops would smack you in the mouth. That was just, come here, pow, smack you, throw you against the wall, frisk you, cuff you, and you just took it. It was just part of how we lived.
There was a civil rights, and I think that you're talking about the case of Ronald Green in Louisiana.
Ronald Green, yes.
Where he was beaten by police after an auto accident. They told his family that he died in a car accident. They told his family, the police who swear an oath, told his family that he died in a car accident, but a video surfaced that showed that they tortured him. They tortured him to death. And his face looks like Emmett Till's face.
Yeah.
Oh my God. How did this happen?
Tased his balls, tased his testicles. Just I mean, it's an interesting thing. It's like when they wouldn't do that to a dog. So you have the only thing I could think of that you would treat that callously is maybe a roach that you would step on and drag your foot back and grate them on the concrete. It's not, that's how they'd see us. That's how it's like an insect. And we're talking about 3 years, at least 3 years of consistent consequence before the culture starts to change.
You're optimistic that it's going to, though. I'm not so optimistic, because every time, as I teach, I feel like, the 18, 19 to 15-year-olds, the 12-year-olds, they got it going on. But then every now and then there's a Kyle Rittenhouse or a Dylan Roof, and I'm like, well, okay, something's wrong here. Something's wrong. So not all of the kids are getting it. Some of the kids are getting that. I don't know. I don't know, but I'm hopeful. What I do know is that and maybe it's just a wave, right? Because there've been waves before of consequences.
Yeah, that's true. I think about that often, that there's, I mean, we talk about there was a period of time after in Reconstruction where there were more black congressmen than ever before. And
then now,
and
right.
Yeah. Then they push back.
Senators.
But it's always a push back. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, one. I don't even know if it's 2 steps forward. I mean, sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. When you're looking at this modification of what they call CRT, and we don't want to teach, they're literally trying to not teach history because they don't want their children to feel guilty for the things that they've done when we live with it every single day. And it's like we all had a meeting and we all decided that this was the case. Nobody collaborated. I had a friend of mine, I don't even know if he's a friend, and I was trying to explain to him, just regular goofy white dude. And I was sitting there talking, I was trying to explain it to him. And I was sitting on 36th Street in my car. And I just yelled to a dude. I said, hey, let me ask you something. And he said, don't call him up. No, come here. And I asked him about the conversation that what we were talking about before, about the cops. And I was just snapped. One gay dude, another tall, light-skinned dude, a big black dude, and I could, with the confidence that I could just snatch somebody off the street and know their life without knowing them.
I don't want to celebrate because it's the least they could do is put these cretins in. I mean, you took somebody's life, and I want to praise his sister for talking about how beautiful and golden his skin was. It glistened it was like magic. His skin was magical, and for that they took his life. And his mother bringing up, like, he's 20-something years old. He didn't like to clean his toes and his feet. There's some 50-year-old men, I ain't gonna name names, who don't like to cut their nails and trim and groom themselves either. There's a lot of that. And he said, I wish he had done that. Maybe if he had known you were going to kill him, he would have cut his nails, because they brought that into the trial. Like that was a reason, because he had unkempt toenails. Well,
I think it was a throwback to runaway slaves.
Or animal. He was an animal. He was a beast.
He's an animal, a beast. Yeah. And this imagery to dehumanize.